Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. You checking the feed now?
God.
Okay.
God, we're good.
Hey, shalom, shalom. Anak na waha barisha Allah. We the Hebrew Israelites coming to you week in and week out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shah. Appreciate you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indian Haitians, and Israelite foreigners. Nachamatam, Kaya Hamalak, Wath Hashemayim, Korah, repent ye for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. First and foremost, before we get started, we can go ahead and say, call Layim La, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shah, Bahasham Chakodash. A double honor to the elders and apostles of great Millstone that touch the truth and rule well. And much respect to you, brother, that pushing the truth with our righteousness. And said, shalom, shalom. All
Shalom.
right, so we can go ahead and hop right into it. I'm going to get into this article, because pretty much it said all of Africa could be at a war, in times most recent. I'm going to get this quick. Oh, could you get it? Matthew 24 and it was a 7.
Okay.
So you
Matthew
start.
20, starting 6.
Okay.
Okay. It's Matthew 24 and verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But
Okay.
the end is not yet.
So ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, you know, through measuring that dollar times diligently, you're going to hear about these things, rumors of wars, skirmishes, things happening, things like Armenia, Azerbaijan, Taiwan, China, like just like we're going into this article here pretty soon, all of Russia has said, not Russia, all of Africa could be at a war. We're going to continue to hear about these things, until the end, and it's only going to increase. You continue on.
Verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places.
So it says, you got your. Could you get the word for kingdoms? Because pretty much that's what we're seeing. We're seeing nation rise against nation. All right, kingdom against kingdom. Pretty much the whole earth is going at war. Which is going to end off with the nukes.
Because what we're seeing right now is they're picking sides, man. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Some nations are siding with Russia. Some nations are siding with America, man.
Right.
When there was a point when all the nations were siding with America, but as we went into it on the live yesterday, we're seeing nations start to pull themselves away, from this American influence.
Yep.
Matthew 24.
It's all good. You don't got to get it, but pretty much it goes into when you go into that word kingdoms. It's pretty much those that have dominion, those that have rule. Rulership. So when it says kingdom against kingdom, that's what it's going into. You see, because Africa is a big continent. With multiple nations and multiple kingdoms, so to speak. So we're seeing those individual rulers go up against each other. I got another one. This is Second Isaiah, also Esdras, chapter 16 and verse 18, and reads, "The beginnings of sorrows and great mourning," just like we saw in Matthew, the 24th chapter. It said all these are the beginnings of sorrows. It says the beginning of famine and great death. All right, we're in the beginning of famine and great death. You brothers went into a lesson going into famine the other day. Famine is starting to increase. It says, and great death and the beginning of wars. We saw the beginnings of wars starting like 2019. 2019 on all the way up to to the vid. It says, and the powers shall stand in fear. The powers are standing in fear because they can see that their authority is being taken away from them. You got these elites. They're looking up into the heavens. And they're being dismayed. Because the chariots pretty much signify the downfall of their rulership. You see, and then also the decadence in morality in each of these countries, specifically America, Babylon the Great, also signifies the downfall of each of these societies.
That's right.
It says, I'm gonna finish it out. It says the beginning of evils. All right, those perilous times. Eve goes into a time it was bad. What shall I do when these evils shall come? And pretty much the point, we're in the time of the beginnings of sorrows, the wars, the famines, the deaths, the evils. We can go ahead and get that article.
Okay. You want the Africa article?
Okay.
Okay, this is off of RT News. It reads, "All Africa could war possible, ex-presidential aid." It reads, "A military intervention in Niger could set off a border war." A political advisor to ousted President Mohamed Bazoum told RIA on Wednesday. I don't think the ECOWAS will make the mistake of intervening militarily in Niger, because if they intervene militarily, that means all of Africa will be at war.
Mm-hmm.
It reads, uh, Bazoum was arrested on July 26th by a group of Nigerian military officers led by General. Look, I can't say these names, man, but the Economic Community of West Africa states uh, was threatened to deploy troops unless he is restored to power, but their ultimatum to Niamey expired on Sunday. In the meantime, the bloc has closed borders and stopped all trade and transactions with Niger. Al Hassan said he was against these sanctions, calling them illegal and illegitimate.
Got a quick one. This is Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 2. And this is specifically going into America, Babylon the Great, which is also known as spiritual Egypt. You see, because of the acts and stuff that they take from these different places, it says, "And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians." You see, this is going specifically into America, but it also can be applied to these other nations. You see, because the Lord said that He comes to send fire on the earth, and what will He if it already be kindled? Roughly paraphrasing. So the whole earth is going to be in a turmoil type state, before the Lord comes back. You see, all these nations is going to be warred against each other. There's going to be infighting, which pretty much is going to take a part in the downfall of the rulership of the world. It says, "I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom." That's pretty much what we're seeing taking place right now. They're, like you said, they're picking sides. Choosing who they feel that is going to be the most advantageous to them.
Right. Read verse 3, Baba Kusha.
Huh?
I said, get verse 3. And now I'm getting the good news.
Verse 3. It says, "The spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards."
Right. Now, in the GNT, it reads, I am going to frustrate the plans of the Egyptians and destroy their morale. They will ask their idols to help them, and they will go and consult mediums and ask the spirits of the dead for advice. Right? Because as it read, the Lord is bringing great confusion to them, man. Right? That's why we see these nations that were once under, Babylon's influence, having the same type of infighting, man. Right? That's the same spirit. That's that civil war spirit, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So as we see, the internal affairs of each of these nations is starting to collapse because they're warring with themselves over whether or not they're going to continue in the ways of Babylon or if they're going to separate themselves, man. And those that have already separated themselves are aligning with Russia, man.
Mm-hmm. Can we continue in the article?
Okay. Continue with all it reads, the new military government has refused any talks with the ousted president, who has no intent of stepping down, according to Al Hassan. He did not sign anything and is not preparing to resign. He would rather die than resign. As an op ed supposedly written from prison and published in the Washington Post on August 4th, Bazoum appealed to the U.S. government and the entire international community to help restore our constitutional order.
So he actually, it says he's actually seeking the help of the U.S.
Hmm.
So you got you got part of the country, or in these different countries, you got some that want to go to support kingdoms like Russia, and then you got him. He said he's not stepping down out of power. He's actually seeking the aid of the U.S. So that's just going to create more decadence of that particular society as well.
That's right.
Because what the Lord say? Could you get that? Baba Kushal says, if two can two walk together, I get that, two walk together unless they be agreed, and then also it says, if Satan fight against Satan, how can his kingdom stand? Because pretty much we seeing the downfall of these different heathen rulerships.
That's right.
This is Salah. This is Amos chapter 3. This is Amos chapter 3. Damn. Chapter 3 and verse 3. It reads, it says, can two walk together except they be agreed? You see, and when you go into walk, in Hebrew, it goes into your conversation. So can you commune with each other? Can you pretty much live together except you be agreed? Can you keep the same kingdom except unless you had the same conversation, or more specifically, you can't keep the same kingdom. You can't stand as a kingdom if you don't have the same conversation, you don't have the same beliefs, you don't have the same morals.
This is Matthew chapter 12 and verse 25. And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you
Satan,
go. No, you continue.
Okay. Verse 26, and if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand?
Mm-hmm. And what you notice about like when you go into like a house or a kingdom, or just more specifically a house, like it has a level foundation. It's like it's no cracks or anything like that. Because if it had cracks, the buildings is gonna collapse. Same with this. You can't have the same. You can't have two different ideologies and feel like it's actually going to work. When you go to like a job, everybody's on the same accord. If somebody is not on the same accord, it's going to cause confusion and chaos.
That's right.
We can see in an article if you didn't have anything.
Okay. Continuing on, it reads, military chiefs reportedly finalized their war plans last Friday, but noted that the actual intervention requires a political decision by the bloc's government. Chad and Guinea have opposed both sanctions and intervention in Niger, while Burkina Faso and Mali said they would regard any military move against Niamey as a declaration of war against both of them as well. So, like the brother said, man, you see, all these nations, are having that infighting, man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it's just going to lead to the destruction of them all, man. Because these nations are either going to stay with Babylon or stay with Russia, right? There's no, separation from that. That's the two powers that are at war as far as geopolitics is concerned. So they're gonna have to choose a side, and we know how America rocks, man. If you don't rock with them, then they're gonna go all out against you, man. But that's why you see him pleading for help because he understands, his their role pretty much, man. It says, according to the French broadcaster RFI, which was banned in Niger, the ECOWAS was mustering a force of about 20,000 troops, most of them from neighboring Nigeria. The new military government in Niamey accused France on Wednesday of setting free terrorists so they could attack a military camp in Niger and of violating the country's airspace as a part of the campaign of destabilization. Paris denied that any terrorists were set free or that
If I
any
can add
attacks.
as well, with this, not to cut you off, Salak, but if I can add as well, like with them doing this, being that pretty much every nation is going up against each other, war is expensive. You see, like it costs probably about like $3 per round. Like when I say round, I'm talking about a bullet. So that's gonna be expensive. And then when you're talking about like large munitions, like artillery and stuff like that, that's even more money. So that's gonna bring these countries down to its knees. You see, because their economy is already shot. You know,
Right.
which is gonna further crash the system that they're using.
Exactly. And somebody has to finance this, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Ultimately putting them under the thumb of one of these bigger nations.
Yep.
It says Paris denied that any terrorists were set free or that any attack took place and insisted the French aircraft were operating in Nigerian airspace under a military pact with Bazoum's government. France refused to recognize the general's repudiation of the deal last week and vowed to keep around 1,500 troops in the shell country.
You could if we drop that and then go into the other one, because pretty much it's going off into that point. Like that's going to affect these countries monetarily. Which we can see that we're in that transition. So it's going to further push that transition to that new currency.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get a quick one. This is hold on, I gotta find it. Unless you can get well not yeah, we'll just go ahead and jump into the article.
Another article, it reads U.S. credit card debt tops $1 trillion. Americans borrow more than ever in the last quarter, Fed data shows.
So like it's been the debt in general has been top 1 trillion a while ago, but it's talking about specifically credit card debt, because people are actually living on like credit cards, buying groceries, gas, and just essentials, because again, it's not sustainable.
hmm Continuing on, it reads credit card balances in the U.S. rose by 45 billion in the second quarter, surpassing 1 trillion for the first time ever. The New York Federal Reserve Bank reported on Tuesday. Delinquency rates have now returned to pre-COVID levels. The bank's economists said nothing uh, that the two most recent quarters appear to show some stabilization. Other balances, which include retail credit cards and other consumer loans as well as auto loans, increased by 15 billion and 20 billion respectively. Just showing you, man, these people don't have no money, man. Right? Nobody has money. You buy groceries on credit cards, you pay,
Right.
you got car loan debt, like it said here, you got student loan debt, you got retail debt, going into buying clothes and whatever manner of amenities, right? All these things, are adding to the downfall of this place, man, because there's no real money, being moved throughout the system. It's just things are getting recycled through digital currency, and these
Yeah,
people are about to be crippled by that, man.
it's like that saying, um, you robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then also another one. It was like a video a couple months ago. Pretty much was three dudes in a circle, and dude was like on the left, he was like, "All right, I owe you $10." The dude in the middle, and dude was like, "Hey," on the right hand side, he was like, "Yeah, well, you owe me 10." So they was pretty much passing the $10 around, and
Exactly.
then like nothing was getting paid. That's pretty much what's going on with this credit card debt. It's like, all right, you swiping your credit card, but nobody's really paying for no one's really paying for what they owe, because the system it was designed to fail, or it's a fiat currency.
hmm Continuing on.
Actually, yeah, can we get that? Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse, I think it's 6.
Okay.
Because I mean, since America has went off the gold, the silver or the gold standard, you know, um, the dollar has been inflated, and that's because it's not worth anything.
Okay. This is Habakkuk chapter 2. in verse 6. Should not these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that it increaseth that which is not his? How long?
So going into the lifestyle of the so-called white man, chiefly America, Babylon the Great, he gains things from things that aren't his,
Yeah.
which applies to like how he goes in these different countries. He says weapons of mass destruction. How he did like with Afghanistan and Iraq. And take things that aren't his, he write into legislation. And also, like with his credit card debt.
Mhm. It says, woe unto him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
And that thick clay going to the heavy pledges debts. Saying, all right, I'll pay you this. When it's really not getting paid.
Right. Just IOUs.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why you see them, put so much pressure on other nations, man, because they're pretty much just using their military might, in order to bully other nations into helping them pay off whatever debts they owe to whoever it be, China or England or whatever it is, man. It's continuing on. Other balances, and it's like the quarterly report shows that student loan balances fell by 35 billion to reach 1.5 trillion, while mortgage balances were largely unchanged at 12.01 trillion. Total household debt jumped by 16 billion to 17.06 trillion in the second quarter of 2023. It says, despite the many headwinds American consumers have faced over the last year, higher interest rates, post pandemic inflationary pressures, and the recent banking failures, there is little evidence of widespread financial distress for consumers, the researchers wrote. Right. And, it's saying that there's no distress. But if there wasn't any distress, people wouldn't be using imaginary money, man. Right? They wouldn't be taking out all of these various loans and buying using things on these credit cards. So that's the people don't have the cash, they don't have the liquid money, so they resort to this, and this is what was putting that burden on the whole nation,
Mm-hmm. And that's why you see
and that's
like
how we know
you had the
once the corona. Oh,
oh,
you got it, you got it.
you got it. I'm about to say pretty
I was just
much.
gonna say when. I was, my
That's
bad, brother. No, you go
your
ahead, you go
thing
ahead,
kind of breaking up.
I think it's just lagging right now.
You're, okay, yeah, but pretty much like you were saying, that's why you got companies like you had the yellow. I think it's called like the yellow company for the trucking. They pretty much they had to file bankruptcy because ain't nobody got it. I got a quick precept.
Mhm.
This is Genesis chapter 47 and verse 15. It says, I'm starting verse 13. It says, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore. And we coming up into that time where it's going to be a very sore famine. It says, so that the land of Egypt and all of the land of Canaan fainted by reason of famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph bought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when money fell in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. All right, and that's what's happening right now. The money is failing. It was destined to fail. You see, again and again, to reiterate, that's why we see these companies filing bankruptcies. We seeing different companies. Hundreds of thousands of stores are shutting down in America, Babylon the Great, because they don't have any money. And they're using credit to pay for stuff for their business, which that's you can't live like that.
Mhm. But they're encouraging it,
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately, as we often say, all roads lead to the Karagma, man. Right? So when people are in debt, when they offer, debt relief, how they gonna do that? Right? They're gonna say you gotta take this device. You have
Mm-hmm.
to connect yourself to our system. We'll forgive whatever debt that you have. But in order to do so, you gotta get implanted with this thing, huh? I'll go ahead and finish this out. It
Okay.
says a separate report from the U.S. Federal Reserve indicated that the interest rate for credit cards hit a record 22% in May. More than 70 million new credit card accounts have been opened since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, Fed data shows. Financial experts believe the debt will keep piling up, in part because high inflation has been forcing households to lean more heavily on their credit cards to cover expenses.
Hmm.
hmm I got a precept for you.
Okay.
This is Jeremiah 26, 25 and verse 10. It reads, Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth, the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, the sound of the millstones, and the light of the candle. So all
Cons.
the
Oh, you got.
okay, the mirth of the land is going to be gone, man. We see, people are struggling, man. Right? Let alone being living check to check. Now you living credit card payment to credit card payment, right? You paying rent with credit cards, like we said earlier. You buying groceries with credit cards. You
Mm-hmm.
paying for your kids' daycare on credit cards. Like everything is through credit, right? And that's the showing you the downfall of the system because nobody has any real resources. Nobody has any real wealth, right? They might have these fiat dollars, but with the prices increasing, and as we see, hyperinflation is right around the corner, right? So, that credit card, is they about to be maxing them out, man. Like I said, 70 million new credit cards got opened up in the last however many years, 2 years. So that shows you the desperation, of the people, man. And like I said in the verse, the sound of the millstones is coming to an end, which there's no work in the land, right? The light of the candle, right? All these things are happening, and it's forcing people into dire straits.
Okay. I got another one, and then we can close it off. You ain't have nothing else.
Okay.
This is Nahum chapter 3 and verse 19. It says, "There is no healing of thy bruise; thy wound is grievous. All that hear thee, so like all that hear the bruit of thee shall clap the hands over thee. For upon whom hath not thy wickedness passed continually?" All right, let's go into to Nineveh. You see, but we could apply this to America, Babylon the Great, because there's no healing of this. You see, because uh, America's just a big city or a big corporation. How do they get how were they able to thrive? They thrive with their economy. So with these companies and stuff, going filing bankruptcy, and with the yellow, that's a trucking company. That's one of the top three things that pretty much is the backbone of the economy. So it's not going to be any healing of this. You see that, and that's pretty much a wound.
Mhm.
Because the economy is affecting this great city. Babylon the Great.
That's right. And we see, these elite so-called, they're gonna bankrupt America, and then ultimately they're trying to bankrupt the whole global system, man. Right? To start anew, because they already see this as a failed experiment, right? It's served its purpose. So now they're trying to implement that new world system, and it starts with removing the current ruling class, so called, right? Because these Americans think that they have some great influence, but they don't realize that this is just a chess piece, in the greater scheme of things, as far as the upper echelon, are considered, man.
Mm-hmm. You have
But
something
that's all
else?
I had.
Con.
That was it.
Well, Adawama Taza, Zabanai Palo as well. That was a beautiful edification to the spirit. Well, Adawama Taza, a thumb Yashi Wam Tawab, a Lord's will you have a good day. We go ahead and close it up with saying, Call Halayim La, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Bahasham, Chakwadash, a double answer to the elders and apostles of great millstone that taught the truth and rule well. And much respect to you, brothers, that push the truth with all righteousness. And say, Shalom, Shalom.
Shalom. Shalom.